Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you comment on Russia's investigation into claims of alleged mass graves of civilians supposedly killed by Ukrainian forces in the Russian-controlled regions in eastern Ukraine? Do you believe this is part of the false flag operations that you've been warning of?
Sure. Well, let me start by saying, as you heard the president say yesterday and Secretary Blinken earlier today, we're in the window where we believe an attack could come at any time, and that would be preceded by a fabricated pretext that the Russians use as an excuse to launch an invasion. And we've seen, and we've talked about this a bit in here, we've seen these tactics used in the past. So those could include, but not be limited to, the report you just referenced, claims of provocation in Donbass, false state media reports, which I think everybody should keep their eyes open and aware of that potential, faked videos, false accusations about chemical weapons, or accounts of attacks on Russian shoulders that have not actually occurred. So there could be a range of false flags and pretexts that we would expect would precede an invasion, and again, we remain in that window.
And can you provide any update on the intelligence assessment of who was behind the cyber attacks of Ukraine's Ministry of Defense and certain banks yesterday? Can you as officials say that Russia was behind the attacks?
We don't have any new details on an attribution. Cyber attribution takes time, in part because adversaries usually try to hide their tracks, and it takes time to gather and analyze relevant information. And these types of incidents, DDoS incidents, can be particularly harder to trace. But we have also been in close touch with our Ukrainian counterparts to offer support in the investigation and response to these incidents. You may have seen the statement from Ukraine Ministry of Defense that the United States and other partners immediately reached out with support, and that some sites are coming back online. And I would note again, as I said yesterday, we've been warning for months, both publicly and privately in our engagements with the Ukrainians and the Europeans, that the potential for Russia to conduct cyber operations in Ukraine is part of their playbook as well. So we're particularly concerned, but we don't have anything new in terms of specific attribution.
Jen,
Oh, go ahead.
are you done, Mary?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
So polite. Go ahead.
Secretary of State Blinken today said that he has seen evidence that Vladimir Putin is actually moving critical military assets toward the border with Ukraine and not away from the border, as Putin has claimed. So does the administration believe that Putin is actually escalating this crisis in real time?
Well, I think, as Secretary Blinken also said, the Russian troops remain massed in a very threatening way at the border. And he was responding, I believe, to a good question about whether they were delivering on what they had promised yesterday. And the answer was no. There's what Russia says, and there's what Russia does, and we're watching very closely what steps they're taking, but they remain amassed in a threatening way at the border.
There's not yet been, to our awareness, an actual invasion. This date had been circled on the calendar as one that this administration, that other governments worldwide were watching very closely. What do you make of the fact that at this point, it is now darkness in that region, there hasn't been a military invasion?
Well, Kristen, without getting into any intelligence or conversations we would have with allies or partners, what we had conveyed last week, and you heard Jake Sullivan convey very clearly, is that we were in the window. We remain in the window.
Is there still as much hope for diplomacy today? Is there more hope? Where does that thinking stand?
Of course, the door continues to be open to diplomacy. Secretary Blinken spoke with Foreign Minister Lavrov yesterday. Jake Sullivan speaks with his Ukrainian counterpart nearly every day, if not every day. We remain. The president, of course, is going to speak with Chancellor Scholz later this afternoon. So it is moving forward, diplomatic conversations on many channels.
Follow